Hello everybody, it's RB with Oak Tree Gun Club, and today I'm going to be showing you how to properly take apart and clean a Glock 17 handgun. And this one is unloaded. It's one of our range rentals here. Now this is going to go for generally pretty much every Glock you're going to encounter. They all take apart the same way. So once you know this video and you know how to do it for this gun, it's all going to be the same. So of course the first thing we're going to do when starting to clean any handgun, or any gun for that matter, is we're going to make sure it's unloaded. So I do have the slide locked to the rear. And the way that we're going to do that is we can have an empty magazine inserted to the gun, and then we just pull back on the slide. It'll stay back to the rear, or should stay back to the rear by itself. But in case we don't have a magazine in the weapon, basically what we're going to do is we're going to pull back on the slide, and as we're pulling back on the slide, we're going to push up on this part, which is called the slide release. So basically I'm pushing up with my thumb, just like that, and then I let go. And that will lock the slide to the rear. And now we can actually check and basically just make sure there's nothing in there. So we see there's an empty chamber. We have now identified the weapon is unloaded and safe to start to clean. And it's very important, especially with a Glock, that we make sure, we absolutely have to make sure there is nothing in the chamber. Of course with any gun, but especially a Glock. And the reasoning for that is because with a Glock you have to discharge this weapon to take it apart. So again, we're going to do a visual inspection. We'll even do a physical inspection, which basically we make sure we don't feel any cartridges in the barrel. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop the slide. Okay, we just release the slide by pushing down the slide release. We're going to make sure that this is pointed in a safe direction, and then we're going to go ahead and discharge it. Okay, so now that the gun has been discharged, we'll see that the trigger is to the rear because the weapon has been discharged. Okay, so this gets a little bit interesting. But what we're going to need to do is, this is our slide, this actually lets the slide out of the frame. And this is actually the same part, it's just exposed on both sides. This little tab here, it's the same thing, it's just the same part, it's just exposed on both sides. We're going to have to, basically, we need to pull the slide back, and as we pull the slide back, and we only want to pull it back about 1 millimeter, we don't want to pull it too far back, because if I pull the slide too far back, then the weapon gets charged again. I'm going to have to discharge it again. So again, safe direction, weapon's been discharged. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly pull back, and I like to use this method where my hand is covering the gun just like such. And as it's being pulled back, I like to take my fingers like this and pull down on the tabs, just like that. Now that I have this step, I'm going to go ahead and let the slide off the frame. Okay, the slide will come off. But basically, here's a close-up of what was happening with that. And basically, that's that little part that's exposed on both sides. I need to make sure that it is basically pulled down, and then I can slide off the slide. Okay, so now we have the frame. We're going to go ahead and just set that aside for right now. And then we have basically our barreled slide unit, and this comes apart in 3 main components. Okay, so first what we're going to do is we're going to take off the spring. We're going to be pulling it down in this direction, just on that end. Okay, so it just comes right out, just like that. We're going to go ahead and set that aside as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the barrel out of the slide. So the way that we're going to do that is essentially, we're just going to pull it out. And what I did is I lifted it upward and pulled it out through that direction. Okay, so at this time, this gun is completely what we call field stripped. Okay, now a field strip is not meant to take apart the gun completely. The field strip, the only purpose that serves is just to get it to the part where basically you can clean the main components and put it back together. Generally with any gun, generally speaking here, we're not going to want to take it apart all the way every single time. We just want to do a field strip to do basic maintenance. So here's our main components. We have the frame, we have the barrel, we have what's called the recoil spring, which actually operates the mechanism. We have the slide, and then we have the magazine. So now we got to clean it. What I'm going to be using today is the M-Pro 7 Tactical. This is a 9mm handgun cleaning kit, and this basically comes with everything you're going to need, and that's why I use it for this demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and I'm going to pull this out, and basically we have our AR-15 combo brush here, which is very good to use for pretty much any gun. And then I have my M-Pro 7 gun cleaner. Excellent stuff that just does a really great job at getting everything all cleaned up. Alright, so what I'm going to do, it doesn't really matter where I start, so long as I make sure that as I'm cleaning, I basically make sure I remember what I've already cleaned, or maybe put those parts aside. So let's get started. So we're basically just going to use the towel supplied with it. It can be any towel as long as it's lint free. And we're going to put these off camera for a second here so you can focus on what we're cleaning. Alright, so we have this. I'm basically going to take the slide, and there's going to be all kinds of carbon buildup and everything just all within this slide. So I'm just basically going to take my gun cleaner, make sure to shake it up a little bit. And I'm just going to spray it on the inside of the slide. And then I'm going to use my brush here. I'm just going to start cleaning it out. And I want to make sure that I clean out all the crevices. I want to clean out what I'm doing right now, which is called the bolt face. I want to just clean out the slide itself and just try to get all that carbon out of there. Now in this particular gun with the Glock series of weapons, they use a Tinnifer Teflon coating. So the gun itself does not require a whole lot of cleaning to get clean, because the carbon will just lift right off. Many times you can just do it without even any solvent. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my cloth here and I'm just cleaning it all back off. Now generally with gun cleaning there's a process, and the process is very simple. The first step of the process is to break down the carbon, the lead, the copper, all the deposits in the gun. The second step is to lift it off. And then the third step is to lubricate the gun before we're done. Okay, so the slide is about done, and that's really all we're going to need. There's no more carbon, it's all been cleaned out. That cleaner does an excellent job. Next thing we're going to get to is the barrel. Okay, and again, I'm going to put that to the side. We're just going to throw some gun cleaner. I'm going to spray some gun cleaner inside the barrel itself, let it start working. And now I'm going to actually start cleaning what's called the feed ramp of the barrel. This is where the bullets are actually, the tip of the bullet is helped and guided into the barrel itself. I'm going to clean the locking lugs here that lug into the receiver of the gun. And I'm just going to be brushing that all along. Now the inside of the barrel is very simple. The M Pro 7 cleaning kit comes with what's called a bore snake. You can buy just the snake by itself. You don't have to buy just the whole kit to get it. This is made by Hops bore snake. And basically it has a brush portion on it. And then as you pull it through, this is all cleaning patch, and on the end you can put a cleaning patch to see your progress. So I'm going to go ahead and just spray the brush portion of it. Put it, and we want to go as the bullet goes down the barrel. So you can notice I'm going from breech all the way down to the muzzle, and then I'm pulling it through like such. Okay, usually that takes just about 1 to 2 passes, and that's about it. This seems to be pretty good. I'm looking through with the sunlight right now, and it seems to be fine, so that's all we're going to do for that. Next we're going to move to the frame, and I don't want to introduce a whole lot of basically solvent into the frame, so with solvent still on my brush, I'm just going to start brushing out the carbon that I can see. Again, we're dealing with polymer, stainless steel, and Tinnifer coated parts, so there's really not, really not a whole lot of work to be done in here. It all comes right off. So I'm basically brushing everywhere here. Any toothbrush will do, but I happen to like the AR-15 style. This was originally included with M16s. It's made to be clean, it's made to be used with an M16 or an AR-15. But again, like I said, it works really well for pretty much any type of gun you can encounter. Okay, so basically just by brushing it out, because of the materials that the Glock is made out of, pretty much everything's been taken care of. Now again, I'm going to reapply just a little bit of solvent to the brush like I just did. And then I'm going to worry about the magazine. Now this is called the follower of the magazine, this part that moves up and down where the bullets actually rest on. And sometimes some carbon gets built up on it. So I'm just going to take my brush and just brush out the magazine a little bit. Throughout many years or many shots fired, eventually you're going to want to start to take apart the magazine itself and clean the insides, but that's not something you need to do every single time. Okay, so basically the gun has been cleaned. Now I'm going to bust out the M Pro 7. It's the LPX gun oil. And basically what this does is really, really good oil. It doesn't build up in the gun, and it basically does a really good job at lubricating it. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of this. It doesn't require a whole lot, especially with a Glock because of that Tinnifer coating. It's basically self-lubricating. So I just threw a little bit on the barrel, applying with the finger. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my bore brush again. Put it through here. Now I'm actually going to pull it mostly through. Now there's many different methods and techniques. There's not one set method. And then I'm just going to throw a little bit of this oil on the end of the bore snake and then pull it through. And what I just did is I coated the inside of the barrel with some oil, just protective against rust and corrosion. I have bare metal steel inside this barrel because of all the rounds going through it, and I want to keep this protected. Next thing that we're generally going to do is I'm going to take this with the applicator tip of it and just put a little bit here and there within the actual rails of the front of the slide itself. And that's about it. So I'm going to put this back together. Recoil spring actually does not pick up pretty much any carbon, so that's why I left it out of the process, but feel free to clean it if it looks dirty. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is basically I have the slide oriented as such. I'm going to first take the rounded tip of the recoil spring and put it into the loop fastener of the slide, and I'm going to have to apply a little bit of pressure, and the pressure I'm applying is downward and in on this end right here of the recoil spring. So I'm going to be pushing it kind of downward and in, and then I get the recoil spring is going to be stuck within the notch of the barrel as such. And once it's stuck like that, then we know that we've done it properly. And then simply the last step of this process, I'm basically just going to take my frame and I'm going to make sure that I guide it correctly, but I'm putting these grooves right here, the tracks of the slide, I'm going to be putting that and lining that up right up here with my frame, just like such. I pull it all the way back. Okay, now that's it. Now we can do a function check. It's always good to do a function check before we're done putting away the gun. So again, I'm going to make sure it's unloaded, which it is. We can see physical inspection too, as well as visual. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to release the slide, point it in a safe direction. I'm going to discharge it, and I'm going to keep the trigger held down. So I have the trigger still held down. I'm going to go ahead and recharge the weapon. And when I release the trigger, I should hear a little click, and then I'm going to discharge it again. Okay, we have properly basically mimicked what would happen in the cycle of fire, the battery of arms of this weapon. We know this weapon is back online and has been successfully cleaned. So thanks for watching.